Happiness is a fuel that burns very hot but very fast. And then I think fulfillment is a fuel that burns very slowly and a lot cooler, but over a long course of time.
Because I was doing this for me, but now I'm doing this for that one or two people who are listening that might change their lives.
It's a weird foundation to build a life on because you're not going to be happy all the time. I don't know that you possibly could.
Next level university.
Underrated, drastically.
Underrated for
the
sure.
Most out of anything we've talked about.
Go check it out, by the way.
You have to really sit down and ask yourself a simple question. Would I regret keeping this person in my life at the expense of what I aspire for?
And that alleviated so much of my self-doubt I had about this podcast and just recalibrated my why with a snap.
I think that's really dangerous because
something I've been contemplating recently is the idea of don't conflate your net worth with your self-worth. In today's world, it's very easy to conflate your inner value with material success because the internet and social media are constantly reminding you how broke and unhappy you are for not being in a tropical island with a cocktail or for not having retired a mother at 22. For someone who is struggling with this, what sort of mindset shift does he or she need to make to start getting rid of this poisonous mentality?
I think just starting by the understanding that social media is quite literally designed to show unrealistic results to the vast majority of people. Again, 50 years ago, if you wanted to see a model, you would have to buy a magazine or turn on television. Now on your phone, everybody is beautiful, everybody is sexy, everybody has perfect bodies, everybody is wealthy, everybody is a great speaker. But behind the scenes, you don't know what these people are really like. So yeah, I think it starts with understanding that the algorithm is quite literally set up to create envy. If the content that works the best is the content that is filled with the most beautiful, successful, rich, wealthy people, of course, that's the content that's going to get pushed. So it becomes this perpetual cycle of not feeling good about yourself, even though statistically you're doing really well, but social media is not involved in that statistic. A good example of this, I was at the gym recently and I was doing legs. And I was squatting 315 pounds for sets of like 6 to 8. And I had this moment where after I finished that, I said, I am just terrible. Because on Instagram, everybody squats that. That's nothing. That's most people's warm-up. But I can count on maybe one hand how many people I've seen in my gym do that.
Yeah.
That's a good example of reality versus social media. And even, I'm somebody who's very conscious of this, but I still fall victim to it.
Yeah, exactly. That's how they keep you hooked in with these algorithms. They make sure that they have the most either controversial or the most alluring content for you to be glued there. So it is very harmful. There is this quote by Dr. James Hollins, which says, "Your value as a human being will be defined by meeting abstract standards of productivity, as defined by total strangers in the culture." And the problem with this truth is that if we get judged by the value or the worth based on how others perceive it, what have we done? We have outsourced our sense of worth to others. For what? For potential praise from a stranger? Or I don't even know, like for likes and followers from people who don't really matter to us? I think it's a dangerous trap, man.
It is. It's maybe the most dangerous trap ever. But I think the understanding that you are going to be judged, it just, how do we detach somebody else's judgment from your judgment of yourself? That's a piece of it. The other piece of it is your standards matter more than anybody else's. It happens both ways. I've had a lot of people. So right now I'm very much in a fitness phase. I'm measuring my calories. I'm going to the gym every day, losing weight. Awesome. I've had a lot of people who have said, Kev, you're not out of shape. Why are you trying to be in better shape? I might not be out of shape by your standard.
Yeah.
but by my standard, I still have a lot of opportunity and a lot of growth. That's a judgment. It's just a judgment in a different direction, right? So I think this is why personal development in general is so valuable and it's so important. You might not see almost any reward from it until you say, you know what? I remember every time I used to go on social media, I would compare myself to these people and I would feel terrible. And now I don't. Interesting. I remember when my friends would talk to me about their holidays and their vacations, how I used to feel bad about myself. But I know behind the scenes, they're a freaking mess. Interesting. But I think that's why working on yourself is so valuable, because to your point, at the end of the day, you are the asset. You are the value. And the only way, seriously, the only way to feel more valuable, to feel better about you, is to work on you, not your house, not your car, you internally, because that's where all these feelings are coming from in the first place.
Right. And you said something about how you don't see the perfect aspect of the holidays. You don't see how the flight was delayed for hours. You
Yeah.
didn't see how this someone's spouse was just nagging someone all day and just giving the person shit for forgetting the charger. So you only see the highlight reel, which is also edited because it doesn't even look that pretty in real life, and then you just feel bummed about yourself, which is, well, we already said what it is. So
yeah, it's so common. It's, if you're out there and you feel that, it's, you're not alone. I think it'll continue to get worse before it gets better, unfortunately, because now AI, you want to talk about creating perfect human beings. AI is capable of doing that. So we're going to have to be very, very careful here over the next however many years.
exactly. You said about you being at the gym slightly before. You posted this gym picture yesterday or 2 days ago. I think, man, you were simply ripped. I don't know
I
what.
appreciate it.
Like, you were simply ripped. And that body puts you easily in the top 10% of physics, statistically. And as of 2024, over 42% of US adults are classified as obese. That's almost half of the population. Each year, about 800,000 people experience a stroke, of which 80% of those strokes are preventable, are just preventable with lifestyle and diet. Talk to me about the importance of health and what role it has played in your life, both professionally, like professional success, and also in living a good life.
I'm convinced a lot of the opportunities I've gotten are because I was in really good shape.
Interesting. Tell me more on that.
We were just talking about judgment, right? So let's say I walk in and I'm in really good shape, and somebody who has the same exact qualifications as I do walks in, and let's say they're not in as good of shape. I'm not saying anything in terms of numbers they just aren't as in good a shape. What is somebody going to deduce from that? A lot of potential things, right? But one of those must be a pretty consistent human being. Got to be committed to something greater than himself. Got to be pretty disciplined, right? Work ethic, hard worker, grit. Interesting. I think fitness is a real life external suggestion of checking a lot of the boxes that are required for success. Not all of them, right? Emotional intelligence, you don't have to have any of that to get in shape. So it's not apples to apples, but I think a lot of the opportunities I've gotten have been based on that. So that's one thing. I'm convinced that one of the reasons I'm capable of working so hard for so long is because I'm sitting in a chair and I'm talking. That's not nearly as hard as the workout I did at 6 o'clock this morning. That was way harder than this physically. Now, cognitively, this is way harder, but that's a whole nother conversation. And I think that we have to be very, very honest with ourselves about what moves the needle on our self-esteem and our self-worth. I was talking to my wife one day, and I said, I feel so much better about me when I'm in really good shape. Now, I'm not saying that has to be your standard. I don't even know if that would be constructive for you. I don't know. That's a you conversation for sure. I feel so much better when I am investing in my own health. What does that help me do? Well, I feel better so I can show up more abundantly here with you. I can be more consistent. I'm keeping the small promises to myself. So I think that's all a really important thing. And I think at the end of the day, unfortunately, we are all kind of walking, talking billboards for what our core values are and what our core beliefs are. And I don't know if that's ever going to change. And I'm not saying that's right, but I want to make sure that my billboard is accurate with what I want my future to look like. And for me, one of the best ways to show that is fitness and taking care of myself. And to your point, I am working really, really hard for a brighter future.
Yeah.
That future will only be as bright as I am healthy. And
True.
I don't want to get to that moment where it's like, oh my goodness, I have to adjust everything in my lifestyle, because that's a scary, scary place to be. And I don't want that to happen. Will it? Who knows? Right? I can't predict that, but we can do the best that we can do in order to avoid that. I track my sleep. That's been a game changer. That's been a game changer.
That's big.
It's huge. It's huge. I went from sleeping 4 hours a night, 5 hours a night to thinking that was awesome to 7 hours, 8 hours very routinely. Like that's a really big thing. But most of that is for the future. That's not really for the right now. So much of it is for the future.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on there. Plus, we are evolutionarily wired to be attracted to more physically built bodies.
Mhm.
When it comes to men to man, you just immediately command more respect when you're built. I've noticed this in my personal life. It's very anecdotal and subjective, but I think it's true. When I used to be at the best shape of my life a couple of years ago, automatically I just commanded more respect, and not in a like alpha male. It's just like people would take you somehow more seriously.
Mhm.
It's very odd, but it's true, and it happens because we are wired that way, and just trying to think otherwise it's not really helping you. And as you said, if you neglect it for too long, it's harder for you to make a 180 turn and go from doing nothing to doing everything right, rather than over time, over time taking care of yourself. So yeah, you
Yeah,
were spot on there.
I appreciate it. Well, it's what's rare is valued. So
Exactly.
if I show up in a Lamborghini and people want Lamborghinis, they're going to look at me in some way. Now, it's not going to be all positive. Some people will say, well, you could have built a school with the amount of money you spent on that vehicle. 100% true. Yep, 100% true. There are some people that will look at somebody who's in really good shape and say that person must be self-centered. Sometimes that's true. Or maybe they must spend so much time in the gym that they're neglecting their families. Also, that is potentially true. There is an upside and there's a downside to everything. But yeah, to your point, when it comes to health, wealth, and love, those are really the things that move the needle. So if you have a deeply fulfilling, amazing, passionate relationship, that will be sought after / villainized. If you are in really, really, really good shape and you work on yourself and you have the confidence that comes with it, some people will be inspired, other people will be drastically turned on. And it's the same with money. If you have a lot of money and you've worked really hard by trying to add value into other people's lives, some people will say, wow, that means I can do it my way too. And other people will say, wow, you are terrible because you don't donate all your money or whatever internal beliefs that they have. I think
Sure.
so much of the response you get from other people is based on their beliefs, their limiting beliefs, their empowering beliefs, way more so than you. You're just a mirror for stuff that gets thrown back and forth.
Yeah. No, I agree. Has dedicating yourself to building a strong body taught you any life lessons or insights that you didn't expect it would?
Man. Yeah. It's very easy to get cocky when you're making progress faster than you think. So last year I did so in bodybuilding, there's bulks and there's cuts.
Yeah.
A bulk is I'm intentionally going to eat more because I want to build muscle. And with that muscle, I'm going to put on some fat too. But then I'm going to do a cut, which means I'm going to try to lose as much fat as I can while maintaining the muscle. And eventually you get to the point where you can be the same exact weight with more muscle and less fat. Simplified version, but
Yeah.
that's the cliff notes. So last year I did a bulk, started my cut in January. So I've been cutting for like 3 months now, 4 months. In the beginning, I was like, this is easy. I'm going to be able to do this. I could probably do this for the next 8 months. I got cocky a little bit. I was like, I'm not even hungry. This isn't really that big of a deal. If you saw me in the gym today, I was just suffering. It was terrible. So that is a suggestion that where we are right now in terms of success or whatever it is just right now. And if you stop doing what got you to that success, you will lose the success and you will lose the momentum. So that's been one. The other thing is, I think fitness is a really good representation of I didn't want to do it. I went and did it. And now I'm grateful I did. In real time, you can literally see I didn't want to do it, but I knew it was best for future Kev. So I went and did it. And now present Kev is proud of past Kev.
Yeah.
There are very few things where you can get that fast of feedback, especially with regret. If you hit the alarm clock and you had a workout scheduled and you don't go and you regret it, the collapsing of that regret, there aren't a lot of things where you can get that. So that's been a really big one for me too. And maybe the best lesson ever that really helped me and helps me to this day is I used to have a very fixed mindset. I didn't think you could change anything about yourself. But when I think from the perspective of fitness, you are extremely moldable. That is quite literally having a growth mindset. Yeah. So I think it helped me understand what it was like to have a growth mindset long before I did when it came to getting smarter or being more quote unquote successful or whatever it is. It helped me feel what it was like to do it and then say, okay, this is actually something maybe I'm capable of, and then allowed me to practice it. So yeah, I would say that's 3 tangible examples.
No, those are great insights. I hope anyone listening that might get inspired by this, that would like to move more, but he or she is not, just start moving more. You will only regret staying in your couch and playing video games. So yeah,
100%.
Just go for it.
100. And I love video games. This is coming from a guy who loves video games,
man.
But there's the okay. And again, this is all a very fine line. So don't blanket statement anything I'm going to say. If I work really hard for the week, I'm consistent, I'm dialed in, I'm doing business, I'm hitting the gym, tracking my calories. It feels really good to have a little cheat meal on the weekend. I feel like I earned it. That works really well for me. Now, if you're out there and you have any negative relationship with food, that advice is not for you, right? But there's something about feeling like when you feel like you earned it, I feel like it just feels better. And that, at least that's my experience. So again, I don't want anybody to blanket statement that.
No, there's some truth in that for sure. I have a slightly deep question here. What do you think we fear more? Losing the life we know, or stepping into a life we can't even imagine yet?
Ooh.
Because I think this is something people should think that perhaps are not thinking enough. Because this could be, you are not going through the threshold or the plateau of whatever is stopping you, because maybe you haven't answered this question in your head.
I feel like we fear the unknown. We fear a brighter unknown more than we do a dark certainty, I would say. Because I think our fear is what if it's worse, though? I think that's our fear. I think most of us are playing not to lose as opposed to playing to win.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that if you could flip a coin and you could either win $0 or win $1 million, everybody's going to flip it. It's like, well, there's no downside really, right? So let me flip it. If you win the $1 million and I give you another opportunity to flip the coin, you can win $10 million or you lose everything and you have to give $5 million back. I feel like most people are not going to flip the coin again. Like, what if it's give me the 1 million? It's certain. It seems better. So yeah, I think it's probably that, just because uncertainty is super, super, super scary. And it's really hard to imagine what your future is going to be like. I don't know what book this was from. And again, I don't know what the study was. I don't even know if the study was credible, but it makes sense if you think about it. Evidently, they put people into an fMRI machine. And their thing was, I want you to imagine yourself as the version of you that's 5 years from today, right? Future you 5 years out. And again, I might be messing the numbers up, but it was essentially something like anybody beyond 3 years when they were thinking about future self, it was essentially them imagining a completely total stranger. They couldn't imagine what they were going to be like in 5 years. And I resonate with that deeply. You and I were talking about how much has changed since the last time we talked, which was only like, I don't know, 5 months ago or 6 months ago,
3 months ago.
3 months ago. I feel like a completely different human. And so much that has happened, I was not prepared to happen.
Yeah.
So I have to imagine that most of us probably deal with that to some degree, I would say. Yeah.
Fair. All right. Yeah.
It's a great question. Great
Yeah.
question.
It's a great answer. Last time you were on, we talked about what keeps people back in life. One aspect we didn't really get to touch is the negativity around us. We often surround ourselves with pessimists that always complain and blame governments or society for their shortcomings. And that negativity is a potent emotion, and it can really slowly rub on you if you keep surrounding yourself with negative family and friends. How do you deal with these people? Do you just cut them off? If so, how? Because quite often these people are family and friends, which we still kind of want around, but yeah, that's just super pessimistic.
It depends on what your core wounds are. So if you're somebody who is afraid to be alone, it's going to be way harder for you to cut people off because I think you probably value company more than you value alignment. If you're somebody like me who does not think you're going to be successful, I value achieving what I set out to more than I value having people around me to do it. My deepest fear is that I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I can't succeed. I can't have people in my life that mirror that back to me. It'll get in my head. It'll screw with me so badly.
True.
So that's a piece of it. If you're somebody who thinks you're going to be successful and you have level 10 self-belief, you will probably try to carry people up the mountain that don't want to go. And that's not good. It's not supportive for you. So I think one, you have to check in with what is your trend. My trend is when somebody is not supportive and I know they're not good for me, I just cut them out of my life. Yeah. When I say that though, I still miss these people. I still think about these people often. I still think about our nostalgic memories all the time. I have love for these people. I wish nothing but the best, but I also need to put myself first. So I think it starts with that. If you had a tendency looking back, do you hang on to people too long or do you get rid of people too fast? I would start with that. And then I would check in with what does family mean to you? And what the beliefs that you have about family, how many of those are actually your own evolved, grown from seedlings belief? How many of that was passed on to you by your family? I would check in with that. And then the last thing I would do is if you do plan on moving on or creating distance or reallocating time, which I like to say because it's a nicer way of saying it, with people, you have to mourn the loss of that in advance. So it's going to be uncomfortable and you're going to miss those people and they might not be super kind about it. And dealing with that in advance, I think is very, very beneficial. So this is always I don't have a great answer for this because this is one of the great challenges of being a human is, yeah, your family is supposed to be your family and they're supposed to love you and support you and be positive, but that isn't always / often the way it is. I have a very weird relationship with family where I don't feel that family is entitled to my time. Fair. Because I need to take care of me before I take care of anybody else. And just like there's certain friends where it's like, you're not entitled to my time, just like I'm not entitled to yours. Yeah. Me expecting that you should be a certain way, be here at a certain time is entitled. And that's not fair to you. That's me putting my stuff on you. So yeah, I would say if somebody's out there and they're feeling that, you have to really sit down and ask yourself a simple question. Would I regret keeping this person in my life at the expense of what I aspire for, what I aspire to, the person that I want to become? Or would I regret eventually getting to a place where I want to, but doing it without these people by my side? And if you can answer that honestly, I feel like you're going to have a higher level of self-awareness to work from. Unfortunately, and this would be in the fine print, it's still going to suck, but you'd have a higher awareness to start from, at least.
For sure. And unfortunately, this is one of those things that goes unnoticed and unspoken. But I think most people like suffer with this thought. But the thing is, much of the time, I believe a conversation will solve this. But we are just so afraid to have that conversation. And sometimes, because those people might be doing that unaware, for them, that's how they show you love. For them, that's like, oh, I didn't know this bothers you. Or I didn't know that you wanted to set some boundaries. We've always been like this, because that's also a factor. Like, we've always been like this. Have you suddenly changed? Or have you always been like this, but you never told me? So perhaps just having that simple conversation, even if it goes wrong, at least now they know. And I think no one will know how you want them, how you want to be dealt with, let's say, or what you want, and not consider it to a degree. So next time they're gonna call you, they might give it a second thought. So at the end of the day, perhaps many of these conversations would be solved well with conversations, actually.
Well, I think that's I would start with that one. I think that's a good point. I tend to like dive into the deep stuff immediately, but yeah, if the person doesn't know how you're feeling, then we cannot expect. People are not mind readers as much as maybe we wish they were. So yeah, that's a really, really good first step for sure.
Nice. Okay, Kevin, so I want to give you some key principles for success.
Okay.
And I want you to rank them from the least important to the most important.
Okay.
Especially as we talked about success last time, and it was a nice episode. All right, so we have education, clarity of purpose, dedication, resilience, and strong relationships.
What is the definition of education?
Education, both formal and informal. So both the school, as much as what you do by yourself, either be it courses, having a mentor, paying for master classes, doing the education as like knowledge.
Okay. And what's the definition of success? What does that mean in this example?
Okay, let's play it with the best example, which is, I think for me, is success is not achieving a set of goals that society told you to, but ones that you intentionally created for yourself. And that for you to be balanced, it has to be both professionally, for you to feel fulfilled and proud of your work, relationships wise, which means you're happy with who you have around, you love them, and it's healthy, which means you fit, which means in a holistic way, but that you created the standard. So it's not like 1 million or 10 million, is as long as I'm financially free and I have all these things. So it's more of a holistic approach.
Clarity is number one based on that.
All right, clarity of purpose.
Got to have clarity. Yeah, clarity. You got to, because without clarity,
that's the top. Okay.
Yeah, that's number one. I would give that number one.
All right.
I would say education's probably number two. For me, it's not formal because I have a high school diploma, but outside of that, everything else has been YouTube University and just life teaching me. So yeah, I'd probably say that's number two. Well, okay, we had grit.
We had resilience.
Okay, what else?
Dedication.
Okay.
And strong relationships. That's what's left.
I would say grit, resilience is next. Because dedication gets you so far. But on the days you don't want to do it, like dedication and commitment isn't enough, resilience will get you through. So I would say resilience is number 3, dedication number 4, and I would say relationships probably last. I'm weird with stuff like that. I think for some people, relationships is going to be number 1.
Yeah.
Right? Depending on the person. But for me, that is probably the order that I would do the best with, and most people out there wouldn't, right? Unless you're very similar to me. But yeah, I would probably put it that way. I think without clarity, you can't be successful unless you've defined what you feel like your purpose is / what is the purpose of success in the first place. It's really hard to be successful without that. That's one. I think the biggest issue with success is you don't know how to do it yet, right? So I can help you become a better podcaster because I know a lot about podcasting because I've had to learn that in order to become successful. So that's just been the education that I've had to learn. That's a really big piece. If you don't know how to do it, there's two ways. You go find someone who does, so that would be relationships, or you learn how to do it, that becomes education, right? So there is a rhyme or reason for that order, but that's very dependent on me as a human and what my core needs are as a human also.
Right. That makes me think, do you have any rules for life that you follow? Is there a mantra you constantly reaffirm to yourself of how to live life?
One of them, and again, this is cookie cutter stuff. Cookie cutter fortune cookie. What would the best version of Kevin do? That's something I ask.
That's one.
Yeah, I ask that very often. It's like a dumb example, but where it kind of started is I went to throw something in the trash and I missed and it went behind the trash. And I didn't want to get it. And I remember thinking, nobody's going to see. Next time I take the trash out, I'll just do it. And I was like, well, what would the best version of Kev do? The best version of Kev would go over there and put in the trash. It's not that big of a deal, man. Get over it. That's a big one for me, for sure. Nice. Get a little bit better. Like just a little bit. I want to be a little bit better in this interview than I was last time. That's the goal, right? Let me do that. That's a big piece of it. Lead by example is a big one.
Classic.
That's a big one. And then let me try to give you one more. Be the person I needed.
Big.
Be the person I needed. That's a guiding. I mean, it's really easy to lose sight of that when you're running a business or when you're doing things or when you're broke or when you're in a bad mood. And again, I'm far from perfect. I have imperfect days, moments, seconds, hours, all of them. But that's always going back to the reason I show up the way I show up with you today is because I want to be the type of person that I needed. But principles have downsides too, right? If a principle is just super, super, super rigid,
you sacrifice anything else.
Yeah, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to commit to anything for the long run without understanding what the downsides are.
Yeah, but I like that all of those that you said are very simplistic. There's no crazy science or crazy. You don't need Sadhguru to explain those to you or to give you something. But if you simply do those, you will become a better person. You will start showing up for yourself first, better every single day, and then by default to others, because your energy and the way you carry yourself is just contagious. So if you simply do those things, you're just gonna get better.
Yeah. And again, most of those are very unsexy, but they're fundamentals. It's the same. You can do that with anything. Like if you want to make more money or you want to become more wealthy, like there are just very unsexy fundamentals that are required to do that. If you want a healthy relationship, it's very unsexy fundamentals often. We were talking a lot about fitness and health, unsexy fundamentals, right? It's just kind of do the same thing over and over again and you get better results as you go. But I understand it's unsexy. It doesn't look good. It doesn't always feel good. It doesn't always, there's not always fireworks and, light shows and sunsets and rainbows, but that's the way it is, unfortunately.
Yeah. Speaking of sexy, does charisma play any role in success?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, for sure. For sure. My business partner has a ton of charisma and I'll never forget. We had a mentor and he was speaking like 4 hours away from where we lived. So we were like, all right, we're the ultimate students. Like we're going to go see him speak. Let's do this. So we drove 4 hours. They switched the time slot when he was supposed to speak. So we actually missed him speaking.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was a whole thing. And we were like, okay, that sucks. And we went and talked to somebody from his team. And then it just got super weird. She's like, wait, I want to take some pictures of you guys. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, go stand by that thing. I'm going to take some pictures of you. I was like, okay, this is strange. And then she said, I think he's actually doing like a meetup. Let me personally bring you guys over there and get you a seat. It's like, okay.
All right.
I remember talking to my business partner, Alan. I was like, dude, how weird was that? And he's like, Kev, that happens to me all the time. Like, that's normal as hell. It's like, oh, interesting. He's got a ton of charisma. He's got a ton of personality.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, charisma is like the it factor. If I walk into a room, you're not going to notice me most likely. Energetically, I don't have that big of an energetic presence. I just don't. There are certain people that do. And I think it's those people that have charisma and they have quote unquote the it factor that can really draw a room or handle a room or attract a room. So yeah, I think there's something energetic about it. I think there's something attractive about it, not like sexually or physically, but just it makes sense to follow the person who feels like they have it together. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say that's a thing, but I don't think that's a thing that I have. Maybe I have it more than I ever have, but that's not something I would self identify with.
Yeah, people with charisma, you just tend to gravitate towards them. You don't know why. Maybe you want to kind of be like them, or again, is that contagious emotional aspect of being a human? That's like wow, like I haven't felt as good as he looks in a while. Like, oh,
yeah.
Give me some of that.
Yeah, I think we're drawn to what we desire, and what we desire is often what we feel like we lack. So it makes sense, right? If you see somebody who just seems like they have it all together and they're bright and they're energetic, they feel super abundant. It's like, I want to get around that. I need to see what that's about. So it makes sense. It's just, I don't know. I feel like there's probably a lot of people that fake it.
Yeah.
But if you said, Kev, I'll give you all the money in the world if you can tell me how to create charisma, it's like, you better hang on to that money because I don't have an answer for you. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet.
All right, fair enough. Okay, I would like to play a quick game. Is the overrated, underrated game.
Okay.
With you know this one, yeah?
I'm ready, yes.
All right. Again, topic is success.
Okay.
And you got to tell me these things are overrated, underrated. So we already said charisma, but is it what? Overrated, underrated?
Ooh, I'd probably say underrated.
Underrated, okay. Discipline?
Underrated.
Online courses?
Drastically overrated.
Millionaire's advice online?
Drastically overrated.
Master's degree in business?
Drastically overrated.
Drastically, okay. Business books or any books to for self-improvement?
Drastically underrated.
Underrated, okay. Next level university?
Underrated. Drastically.
Underrated for
the
sure.
Most out of anything we've talked about.
Go check it out, by the way. Delayed gratification?
Underrated, but understandably so, right? That might be the most valuable. I mean, if that was in the 5 things for success, that would probably be number 1.
It's key to anything to achieve.
Yeah, you gotta. It's as simple as if one of us wants a bright, big, luscious garden, the person who can delay gratification will have a better one. Yeah. I'll plant more seeds, I'll water them, and eventually they'll bloom. But every time one of your seeds doesn't come up and sprout, you dig it up. And it's not the seed, it's not the soil, it's not the water, it is the time perspective. That is the thing. We talked about that last time. We talked about expectations and all of that. And I think one of the reasons success is so hard is because it requires an elongated time perspective. Because I've been podcasting for 8 years. We will be, the last 2 years, we've accumulated more quote unquote success than the previous 6. I didn't know that was going to happen. I wanted it to be this year, and it wasn't this year, and I wanted it to be the next year, and it wasn't. It was all the years combined. It's the math gets weird, and I think that's why it's so hard to understand. Like, I'm sure you've heard about the magic penny.
I'm not sure.
So
go with it?
Yeah. There's a book called The Compound Effect, and it's all about compounding. It's all about how to do little things that add up to big things eventually. And the riddle is, you can choose. I'm going to give you a penny that doubles every day, or I'll give you $5 million.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would say, a penny? Yeah, no, give me the $5 million. Well, yes, it ends up 1 cent, then it's 2 cents, then 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, all of that. On day 31, the penny is worth, I think, $10.4 million. But I can't imagine that most people would pick the penny because it's really hard to extrapolate 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 1, 2.
The
Yeah, no,
compounding, yeah.
it's almost impossible to really understand it unless you've studied it a ton or you're somebody who is really strong mathematically, which was neither for me. So I would have taken the 5 million for sure. Then you find out that you just lost 5 million. You could have made way more than that. So yeah, I think delaying gratification is probably the key to almost everything.
Yeah. It's the same with you go to the gym. You might be hitting the gym for 5 months and no results. On the 6, exponential results, but only because you kept not eating the sweets. You kept
Yeah.
going there. You kept not snoozing the button.
Yeah. When I start dieting, I gain weight. So if I thought that was going to be the way it was and I didn't delay gratification, I would just say like, oh, this isn't going to work. I'm going to keep doing what I was doing. But again, it's logic versus emotion. It's really hard to override emotions. When it feels bad, it seems bad. And when it seems bad, you want to change course. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, yeah. I want you to give me your thoughts on a saying I really don't like, but I keep seeing this everywhere on X and on Instagram. The saying is, if you were smart, you would be rich. What do you think about this statement?
It's too blanket statement. No,
It
no.
is, yeah, that's why I hate it.
There's a lot of, I mean, give me somebody who is like the foremost expert on polar bears. I'm willing to bet they're not that wealthy, even though they know more about polar bears than anybody on the planet.
They're still smart.
They're super smart. You're way smarter than I am when it comes to that, for sure. So no, it's not enough. I know a lot of people that are super smart that will never be wealthy. It's just they're missing out on the other components. I think it's important to increase intelligence. I think it's obviously helpful, but no, being smart is not enough. Just like if somebody out there says the reason you're not successful is because you're not working hard enough. That's also not true.
Yeah.
I know people that work 80 hours a week that aren't wealthy because of whatever the job that they have is or whatever it may be, right?
Other factors, yeah.
A lot of other factors. So no, I don't think you can really put anything into one silo.
Because it assumes that all smart people want to be rich, which is not true. Like
Yeah.
if you're really smart, actually, you would understand that all the hard work it takes and the stress it takes to become someone rich, and maybe you just want a stress-free life.
Yeah.
Or it knows the sacrifice you need to take, but it's like you're smart. You know you're gonna regret that, and you're gonna regret not spending time with your family. So just because you're smart, you're gonna spend time with your family. Fuck being a CEO of a multi-billion company. So I just hate it because it keeps going viral. There's like it's so blanket statement. If you try and leave a comment, everyone is like, "Is a skill issues?" Like it's just okay. You don't get it. It's just something I wanted your perspective on it.
Yeah. I think it's a layer one thought.
Yeah.
It's just it's a layer one thought. There is some potential truth to it, but it will never be like that fully across the board, right? And I think there's a lot of people that want to believe that. It's like, well, I'm smart, that's why I'm successful. It's like, but that's a piece of it for sure, yeah, for sure. But it's not the whole thing.
And do you think people should optimize their life for happiness, or is that the wrong state of being to go after?
I think happiness is results based. Happiness, I think for most people is just a dopamine hit. So you and I were talking about video games. If I was to work 12 hours today and then play video games, I would be happy when I was playing the video games, but it doesn't necessarily build for a brighter future.
Yeah.
So I think that's really dangerous because it's a weird foundation to build a life on because you're not going to be happy all the time. I don't know that you possibly could. I think about that all the time. Like these people who are way more successful than they thought they were going to be, and like all the downsides that they didn't know they were going to get. I don't think they're as happy as most people think they are.
No, they're not.
I don't, right? So I think fulfillment is the the greatest measurement, at least the greatest measurement that I've found, is fulfillment. Fulfillment is growing and contributing towards something. It's like internal wholeness. I think happiness is far more external. Like when I buy a new car, I'm happy. But that happy does not sustain me.
Yeah.
I think fulfillment is way more sustaining. So I always say happiness is a fuel that burns very hot but very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think fulfillment is a fuel that burns very slowly and a lot cooler, but over a long course of time.
Yeah. And usually happiness comes in very specific highlights, whereas contentment and fulfillment, it's very difficult to, or not impossible, it happens. It's very difficult to be happy alone in your room. And it's easier to be happy, I don't know, skydiving. But fulfillment, it can be present at any time. It can be right before you go to bed by yourself. It can be, you might be doing a difficult job or a difficult exercise. You're not happy, but you could still feel fulfilled.
Yep.
So I can see how fulfillment is a much more meaningful pursuit compared to the fleeting happiness.
I think it's harder. Yeah, I think it's harder, but I also think when you try to optimize for fulfillment, you get bigger bouts. Okay. There's far less pleasure in my life today than there was 8 years ago. But the pleasure I do have today is exponentially better because I've done way more things for fulfillment.
Right.
So like that's the interesting thing is, okay, if you're somebody who wants to have the happiest life ever, go do a bunch of fulfilling stuff because the byproduct of that will be a higher quality happy, is my thought, right? That's my thought is I love watching mixed martial arts. I'm a huge fan of fight sports, combat sports. I love them. Do I get to go to fights all the time like I would like to? No. But since I've done so much that's based on fulfillment, which has sustained me and I've been able to be quote unquote successful, eventually when I do go, I'll be able to really go. Or I'll have a movie theater where I can watch it, whatever, hypothetically. My happiness will be for shorter amounts of time, but it will be way more happiness in that amount of time, is my thought process, at least. Very anecdotal. For sure.
No, but it does make sense. At least I can relate because maybe we're very similar in some aspects.
Well, that's why we get along so well. I feel like
Yeah,
you and I are
exactly.
very similar.
All right, so I can ask you the last question. I always ask as a closing tradition because you answered it last time. But I want to end this with a personal story. So about a month ago, I was out with my buddies and someone who has recently become a friend. We had a couple of drinks, and this guy told me how he had listened our conversation, our first episode of this podcast, and he said how all the questions I asked, there were questions floating in his head unanswered, and all the answers you gave, they just made so much sense for him, so that he was finally able to unscramble his thoughts. So I'm like, that's great, that's awesome. Then he goes on and he says that it motivated him to decide to join a personal training course so that he can quit working on a cafe and to buy his first ever book to study. And I was speechless. So you're telling me that that conversation was the catalyst for you to begin to put your life in order. And that made me realize that if I can have an impact with 10 subscribers in my first episode, imagine the impact I could have later on. And that alleviated so much of my self-doubt I had about this podcast and just recalibrated my why with a snap. Because I was doing this for me. But now I'm doing this for that 1 or 2 people who are listening that might change their lives. And I want to thank you for being so awesome on that great first episode.
Oh, that's awesome.
Having that casual conversation. But yeah, just a reminder that these might just seem like conversations, but they have the power to impact others in ways we cannot even imagine. So yeah, just thank you again, man.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. 2 questions. 1 question. What was the book? What book did he buy?
It was a personal training, like a fitness book. I don't remember the name, but it was related with a goal of, I'm doing this, I'm in good fit, I like it. And then this was the push that guy needed. A conversation with strangers on the internet. I'm like, fuck yeah, that's good. That's amazing. You can have an impact just like that. So yeah.
Okay. I love that. Shout out to you, whoever you are. Super proud of you. That's amazing. To wrap everything up that we talked about, that person judged that episode in a positive way.
Yeah.
There is judgment out there. And I think we're so afraid of negative judgment, understandably, but the positive judgment is where you impact people. And you can't positively impact people without having the potential downside of people not liking what you do. And I think that's a really shining example of that. So, number one, it was my pleasure, and this was my pleasure as well. And I will come back every month until the end of time. I will, and you
Oh,
might
that's
run
so
out of
kind of you.
questions. I love this. When I saw this on my calendar today, I was like, oh,
Oh, nice.
no way. Okay, awesome. So I am privileged. I appreciate it very much. And yeah, I love what you're doing, and I very much appreciate being a part of it.
Fantastic. Kevin, thank you so much, man.
Of
Thank you for
course.
being awesome. I'll see you on the next one.
Yes, sir.